One email from HR turned a normal flu season into the biggest staffing disaster our store had ever seen. They thought banning shift swaps would make scheduling easier. Instead, they proved the only thing keeping the business running was the employees they refused to trust. I worked as a front-end supervisor at a grocery store outside Chicago, over 100 employees, thousands of customers a week. Our schedules changed constantly. People got sick, students had exams, cars broke down. For years, employees handled it themselves. If Sarah couldn't work, she'd ask Jake. Jake would text Emma. The shift got covered, the manager got notified, nobody panicked. Our manager Rick even joked once, "If you people can fix scheduling without me, you've made my day." Then HR got involved. One Monday, every employee got the same email. Effective immediately, shift swap policy update. "Is this real?" someone asked. It wasn't a mistake. No more arranging swaps with each other. Not even with manager approval. If you couldn't work, you called out, and management found coverage. The email ended with one line in bold. "Unauthorized shift exchanges may lead to disciplinary action." That one sentence changed everything overnight. I walked into Rick's office. "Have you seen this?" I argued against it, he said. "HR called it policy. So if Emily gets sick, you find coverage, I find coverage. You know employees already solve this themselves." I know. Someone in corporate thinks spreadsheets understand people. People stopped helping each other immediately. Not because they wanted to. Because nobody wanted to get written up. And the very next morning, that rule got tested for the first time. Emily's son got sent home sick. She looked at the schedule, ready to text Jessica like always. I pointed at the HR notice on the board. "You can't ask anyone. You call out." "This is going to be a mess," she said. Neither of us knew how right she was. Rick spent 2 hours calling people. Nobody answered. By dinner, we ran 3 registers instead of 8. Lines stretched across the store. "What's taking so long?" a man snapped. "We're short-staffed, sir." "Looks like more than short," he said. Rick jumped on a register himself. Managers bagged groceries. We barely survived the shift. After closing, Rick told us, "No one's in trouble." We followed policy. "So are they changing the rule?" someone asked. HR called it an isolated incident, Rick said. Nobody believed that. As we left, Jessica said, "If they think today was bad, they have no idea what's coming." She had no idea how right she'd be either. The next week, a produce clerk got food poisoning. Normally a 2-minute text would have fixed it. Instead Rick made 23 calls. One person said yes. 4 hours after the shift ended. "So we're just short all day," I said. According to HR, Rick said, "This is the correct process." Customers started noticing empty shelves. The next morning, Kevin called out, his exam got moved, and he'd already found someone to cover him. "So what's the problem?" I asked. "The problem is HR says I can't," he said. That afternoon, Sarah told me Emma had offered to take his shift. "She literally wants the hours," Sarah said. "So why isn't she here?" I told her she wasn't allowed. Emma texted back one line. "So the store would rather be short-staffed than let me work." That was exactly what the policy required. Rick got a call from HR asking why things weren't running smoothly. "Employees aren't refusing to help," he said. "They're following your instructions." He hung up and told me HR wanted employees to voluntarily coordinate. Which is exactly what they banned, I said. They said the policy still stands. By Friday, call-outs had nearly doubled, complaints were climbing, and overtime costs were rising because managers kept covering hourly shifts. HR blamed temporary adjustment issues. Nobody at corporate saw what was coming that weekend. A summer festival was happening blocks away, and Rick had planned the schedule for weeks. If everyone shows up, he said Friday, we'll be busy, but fine. That plan lasted until Saturday morning. By 7, 3 employees had called out for reasons nobody could argue with. A fever. A broken down car. A daughter rushed to the emergency room. Normally, all 3 already knew who'd cover them. Instead, Rick made call after call. Voicemail. No answer. The store opened anyway, manageable for an hour. Then the festival crowds hit, and it felt like floodgates opening. Why are only 4 registers open? Customers kept asking. One man slammed his basket down. I've been standing here 25 minutes. Open more registers. We don't have the staff, I told him. You mean nobody wants to work? Rick stepped in. They want to work. They're following company policy. He just shook his head and walked away. Every manager in the building was doing hourly work by afternoon. Rick ran a register for 6 straight hours. Then something nobody expected happened. Emma walked into the store. Not scheduled, not in uniform, just shopping. She saw the lines, saw Rick at the register, and walked over. I can stay, she said. You'd really do that? Rick asked. Of course. We need you. She glanced at the policy posted behind customer service. But your email says I can't. Rick looked at the paper, then back at her. I can't ask you to violate written policy, he finally said. She nodded, picked up her basket, and walked away. The solution had literally walked into the building. And policy sent it back out the door. By evening, customers were abandoning full carts. One regular told me he'd shopped there 12 years and never seen it run like this. That night, corporate called an emergency meeting. Did any employees volunteer to cover shifts? HR asked. Yes, Rick said. Then why weren't they scheduled? Because your policy prohibited it? Do you have documentation? HR asked. Rick smiled for the first time all week. Oh, I documented everything. The call ended with one line. We'll meet again Monday. Rick closed his folder, and something told all of us Monday wasn't going to be a normal meeting. Monday morning felt different the second I walked in. Conference room, 9 o'clock, Rick said. The district manager had driven in, and 2 HR reps joined by video. I've spent my weekend reviewing the staffing reports, the district manager said. What problem was this policy meant to solve? Better scheduling control, HR said. Did the old system have fraud compliance issues? No. So employees covered shifts fine for years, and stores ran normally? Yes. So why did we replace something that worked? Nobody answered. Rick slid his folder across the table. Call logs, complaints, overtime costs, employees who'd already found their own coverage before being forced to call out. We paid managers overtime, the district manager said, while employees willing to work stayed home. Exactly, Rick said. We didn't anticipate this outcome, HR admitted. With respect, Rick said, we did. We warned you the day this started. We adapted perfectly, Rick added. We followed the policy exactly as written. Nobody argued with that, because it was true. Not one unauthorized swap happened after that email. The district manager closed the folder. Effective immediately, the shift swap policy is suspended. One HR rep tried to object. The data is clear, the district manager said. This policy created the very problems it claimed to prevent. By lunchtime, a new email went out. Employees may once again arrange voluntary shift swaps with management approval. The rule that caused weeks of chaos disappeared in a single email. That same afternoon, a cashier needed to leave early. Before Rick even finished reading the text, another cashier had already volunteered. The schedule updated in under 2 minutes. No emergency calls, no uncovered register, no drama. Funny how that works, Rick said. A month later, the district manager pulled Rick aside. I owe you an apology. I should have listened when you warned us. I figured you'd see the numbers eventually, Rick said. Afterward, Rick turned to me. If HR had just asked the employees how scheduling actually worked, they could have avoided all of this. Sometimes the people doing the job already know the smartest solution. When HR told us not to cover each other's shifts, we didn't argue, and we didn't protest. We simply followed their instructions exactly. It turned out the fastest way to prove a bad rule was to let it work exactly as intended.